Ready?
Ready.
Okay. This is What in the World is Happening, where two filthy liberals look at the news and try to figure out what's going on. And honestly, I kind of hoped we'd be a bit further along in the series before dealing with something with this much of an ick factor.
Do you know what? I think I'm going to need a shower after this episode.
Yeah, same. Another one. My name is Taya, and with me is my co-conspirator, Dee. So, as we mentioned on yesterday's show...
Yeah.
We had a listen to the Fire and Fury podcast episodes of the Jeffrey Epstein recordings.
Yeah, I mean, we had to listen to it twice.
Yeah, and it was a lot.
It was a lot. This podcast has really kind of just hit me hard, I think. This episode's going to hit me a little harder than I want it to.
Yeah.
And...
I mean, in a way, you kind of proved what Michael Wolff said in the podcast, that the name Jeffrey Epstein kind of makes everyone go a bit crazy.
I think so.
I think for different reasons. I mean,
totally different reasons.
Depending on what your relationship is with the kind of things he did. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just feels like there was such a hidden agenda behind it all.
Yeah, it didn't feel like... We spoke about this beforehand. I think my biggest problem with the whole thing is that, you know, investigative journalism is vital.
Oh God, yeah, we need it.
But investigative journalism needs to serve a bigger purpose than just selling a book.
Yeah, Wolff holding it back as much as he did, and then to give us the information 2 days before a massive election that, like I said yesterday, affects the world. It just doesn't affect the US, it affects the world.
But he didn't just, he didn't sit on it necessarily. I mean, we'll get into it in a bit. So for some context for those who haven't actually listened to it but have heard about it, Michael Wolff sat down with Jeffrey Epstein over a series of conversations back in 2017.
Yeah.
The purpose of which was, he was writing a book. He wanted to do this big expose. And yeah, so, and obviously wanted to write this book, but I don't know, the whole thing just, I'm a bit lost in how to actually talk about this.
Well, I think maybe we start with what he said use his words, I guess.
Okay, so I think one of the least salacious things to talk about.
Yeah, go on.
Is what Epstein said about Trump's inner circle when he first. So I'm going to read this quote. This is from Epstein himself. This is what he said in one of their early meetings. And this is about Donald Trump's team.
At the White House.
His people fight each other, right? And then have outsiders. He sort of poisons the well outside. He will tell 10 people Bannon's a scumbag, and Priest is not doing a good job, and Kelly has a big mouth. What do you think? Jamie Dimon says you're a problem, and I shouldn't keep you. I need a new spokesperson. So Kelly, even though I hired Kellyanne's husband, Kelly is just too much about wild, and then he tells Bannon, and I really want to keep you, but Kellyanne hates you.
It's so funny how Epstein has Trump's wordology, if you want to say it that way, terminology, in the way he speaks, and and how he doesn't actually finish the sentence, and how his sentence kind of waffles on from one.
I think the thing is, I think a lot of this is okay. So just to be fair to the whole thing is, we were reading an AI generated transcript.
Oh yeah, okay.
And some of it's garbled because this part of the recording was recorded in a restaurant, and Michael Wolff says himself that he's absolutely rubbish with recording equipment.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of straining and things, and we will link to the Daily Beast because they did they subtitled the whole thing, and unfortunately we just didn't have time because there was a lot to go through in this. So because Wolff says, I became an outlet for Epstein to express his incredulity about someone whose sins he knew so well. And then this person actually being elected president, Epstein was utterly preoccupied with Trump and I think, frankly, afraid.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can understand that point because Trump is in power.
Well, he was, yeah.
He was
He
in
was
power.
the most powerful man in the world.
Yeah.
Most powerful toddler in the world.
And obviously Epstein was scared that Trump would somehow retaliate.
Which I mean, okay, we just as a disclaimer, in case anybody comes, no one will ever know, like Michael Wolff says, no one will ever know the true story of what happened to Epstein in the end.
Yeah, no. I mean,
officially he committed suicide, but also how does one break their own neck?
Okay, let me ask you then. See, for my theory, I think there is too much going against it for it not to have a conspiracy theory. So, I actually do think, or I'm more likely to think that Trump hid it all.
And I also think it's sloppy enough to be a Trump conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's not tidy. It's... Yeah, he broke his own neck.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it's too sloppy to be... Yeah, but...
But, that's just a theory.
So...
like you said, we're never going to know.
Wolff sat down with Epstein because he saw Epstein as kind of a... sort of an insider. He wanted to get an inside scoop.
Yeah, on Trump, yeah.
And it's not like he exposed Epstein as the sex trafficking paedophile because he'd already been indicted and convicted for that in 2008. And you looked into this. He had he got a sweetheart deal. Do you want to talk to me about that?
Okay, so this is from ABC News.
From when?
In 2017, I think. Okay. So so there were two sisters, one called Anne, one called Maria. They were the first people to report Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to law enforcement authorities in 1996. Okay, so it was 10 years before the FBI actually took them in. And in 2006, the FBI spoke to them again. I'm going to read out the article. But the government made the infamous sweetheart deal with Epstein that allowed him to plead to two relatively minor charges in state court. He served just 13 months of an 18-month sentence with liberal work release privileges that allowed him to spend up to 16 hours a day at his office in West Palm Beach.
So, 16 hours a day at his office, the other 8 hours a day, where was he?
Doesn't say.
So he was essentially
a free man. And, I mean, that to me is despicable. I mean...
It's kind of par for the course for a billionaire, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you have to wonder who was, in the judiciary system, who's in his little black book.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
hate talking conspiracy theories.
I hate it as well.
This just reeks of it's like something out of John Grisham's Nightmare.
It is kind of unbelievable.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein has been on that kind of accusatory list since 96.
Yeah, but it's unbelievable in how believably it played out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
agreed.
I mean, how old were they in 1996?
I don't have the ages, unfortunately.
What were their names?
Annie and Maria Farmer.
Annie and Maria Farmer.
In fact, Maria Farmer, she's been pressing the FBI to release the records that they gave, the statements that they gave in 1996, and they still haven't been released to them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
On April 16th, 2019, Farmer filed a sworn affidavit in federal court in New York alleging that she and her 15-year-old sister, Annie, had been assaulted by Epstein and Maxwell in separate locations in 1996.
Oh, my God. the thing is, how did the Florida courts just not do anything about it?
The thing is, you're talking about a very rich man and a system that usually puts victims on trial.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that is disgusting.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. But
she was 15, though. 15.
yeah, 15.
mean,
But the thing is, think about how bad it is now,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
For victims. Think about how bad it would have been in 1996.
Oh, kind of.
I mean, just in the last 10 years,
Yeah.
we had a case in Ireland
Yeah.
where a teenage girl was assaulted, but the judge gave leniency to her attacker because she was wearing red underwear when it
yes,
happened.
yeah.
See, and that's what I mean. Like these systems, they prey on any kind of fault. in any perceived fault in a victim's conduct or whatever, and it's like, no, you brought that on yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So, it's heartbreaking.
Oh, absolutely.
And these two sisters, the farmer sisters, just have had no closure.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter that Epstein's dead.
No.
It doesn't matter of anything. They're having to suffer it now.
If anything, that might make it worse for
Yeah.
the victim, because now okay, he was executed, but I mean, one of the reasons I'm kind of against the death penalty, apart from all the obvious flaws in that system, is that I don't think sentencing someone to death, it kind of absolves them of any long-term repercussions, because they don't, because I think honestly, all things being equal, being separated from society and watching your life pass you by year after year, I think is a worse punishment than just executing them, because you now have to live with what you've done. You have to spend all those years telling yourself, if I hadn't done that, I would have had my life.
Yeah.
But okay, so this podcast, it feels like I can't remember the other gentleman's name. It feels like they were more interested in sort of just painting a picture of Donald Trump and his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, and how dysfunctional they were as friends.
Yeah.
Their friendship was like this ongoing pissing contest.
Not only, it was a pissing contest, but it was also kind of quid pro quo.
Yeah, it was it was very transactional.
Yeah.
But it was
competitive.
It was just a decade-long dick measuring contest.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because Trump doesn't like to feel. Trump, it's very obvious. It's very clear. Trump needs to feel like the best in everything.
I mean, he says it all the time.
Yeah. But here you have, like, if we step back a bit, take away the monster element of these two men, right? And just say, okay, let's go back to the 80s when they were friends.
Right.
The 80s and the 90s, when no one knew anything about how terrible they were. Or as the most anyone knew was like, it was just kind of like rumors and open secrets.
Yeah.
If the two of them were on the front page of like Rich Dickhead magazine or whatever it is, you'd look at Jeffrey Epstein and be like, yeah, he's obviously the cooler of the two.
Of course.
And Trump is the sort of, he's kind of like a Cabbage Patch Kid who wished to be a real boy. He's got that squishy Cabbage Patch Kid face. He has the male pattern baldness that he tried to cover up. He's a bit podgy. He's unathletic. And here you have like his best friend, who's like he's tall, and he's got he's better looking. So it must have really kind of like eaten away at him that he, in his eyes, he could never be as cool as his monster paedophile friend.
Okay,
Jeffrey.
But Jeffrey Epstein did say that Trump was charming. He could basically go to a big fat, this is his words, he could go up to a fat lady, his words, not mine,
Okay.
and charm the pants off her. Essentially, that's what he said. Right? So they're in a club, he goes up to her and he could have charmed her to sleep with him. That's essentially, but that charm,
But that's
I mean,
80s charm.
yeah, 80s charm.
That's-
And 80s charm is horrible.
That's gold Casio watch charm.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
what's the movie?
You need to describe. You can't just look at me and go like, describe it.
It's the one where he's a yuppie and he kills all these people on the road.
Oh, American Psycho.
Yeah, American Psycho.
Yeah, no, Trump wishes he.
But that's what it reminds me of. That whole American Psycho element.
But it's American. It's 80s yuppie
culture.
yuppie charm. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's
My cock's bigger than your cock.
Yeah, but it's
What is it?
it's what's his name? Loads of money.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Okay, so they one of the questions they asked in this is, what did Trump and Epstein actually see in each other? Now I have a series of amazing quotes here,
Okay, go.
but Michael Wolff says, I think that they were 1980s guys. I mean, I think they saw themselves, this was their time, and they were the embodiment of that moment, which was money, women, and status. I mean, the money was all about the deal, playing the angles, essentially get rich quick schemes. It was Trump's real estate stuff. He was borrowing money, and how he was borrowing money and who he was borrowing money from. Epstein, a million schemes. I guess a money laundering scheme.
Well, I like this one. I think it pleased... this is what the interviewer says. I think it pleased Epstein that he could look down on Trump. Trump the vulgarian, I would say. Vulgar.
Trump the vulgarian.
I love that term.
Oh, what's the guy in the painting in Ghostbusters 2?
Oh, Vigo.
Vigo the Carpathian. That's all I heard. Donald the Vulgarian.
Oh, you know what's really
It's
good?
Vigo. It's Donald.
Oh my God. Okay, let's go back to the point that you were making earlier with regards to how competitive they were and what Trump would do and cuckold.
Yeah, he'd sleep with all his male friends' wives. It's in the specific way he would seduce the wives of his friends. He would have someone into his office. He'd make an appointment to see them, and at the same time, he'd get the wife on the speakerphone, and the husband would not know that the wife was listening into the conversation. And then Trump would prompt him to essentially begin to talk about sex and begin to talk about issues he might have with his wife, and then offer girls to this person, and that would essentially be the way that Trump would seduce the wife secretly listening on the phone. Essentially, what he did is, instead of being this Lothario who can seduce a married woman...
But he did that too.
No, let me finish. Instead of being a Lothario that can seduce a married woman,
Yeah.
he'd essentially make... He'd have a target, this wife,
Yeah.
and he'd essentially make the wife absolutely detest her husband so much that Donald Trump is the better of the two.
Yes.
It's more like he makes himself attractive
By being the hero.
By comparison. You see how slimy your husband is? You said I was slimy. Look at how slimy your husband is.
Yeah, and oddly enough, if you think about the culture in the 80s and the 90s, that whole hero worshipping thing where women, oh, you saved me
but
kind of point.
It's also, I mean, it's obviously...
Who would want Donald Trump to save them? Ew.
But obviously it's a very, I mean, I don't need to say it, it's a very manipulative tactic.
Oh, God, yeah.
But what he's essentially doing is breaking her spirit enough to seduce her.
Mm-hmm. But do you know what? When it comes to abuse of women,
yeah,
that's what happens. Whether you are, it doesn't matter what kind of abuse you are that you go through. It is about breaking your spirit.
Yeah, and that's all he does. Is he uses the husband's infidelities and what have you to break his target's spirit. So, I'm the good guy.
Yeah.
If it weren't for me,
You would never have
you would
known.
never have known. And now I'm the hero. I'm your
Yeah.
knight in shining armor.
That's it, knight in shining armor. That's that. But that's what he wants to be
It would
for
be knight in
every.
gold plated armor.
But that's what he wants to be. Even now, if you think about the election and what he's said about being the protector of women.
I will protect women whether they like it or not.
Oh my God, not.
And that's essentially what he did with these women.
Yeah.
It's like, I will protect you whether you like it or not.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I will respect you whether you like it or not. So this is one big ick stew.
Yeah.
But I think the potatoes of this ick stew is there was one point in which they had a competition about who would be the first one to sleep with Princess Diana.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I don't think that ever happened. And there was a thing Epstein had. There was a period in which he was brought in to be a Princess Diana walker. In other words, when he would be seated next to her, when the seat became empty, it's, these guys were playing at the highest stakes they could play. I mean, there was constant kind of betting about who would get the girl first. So girls were just basically, they were prizes.
Yeah.
But they weren't even like grand prizes.
No,
they were
it
more
was
like raffle prizes.
Yeah, there's basically, they, like you said before, they were constantly in competition with each other. I mean, if you go on from there, he says there was a moment in which they actually shared a girlfriend. They were both openly and possibly proudly going out with the same girl at the same time. But let me just make the point that in that moment in time, there was a particular kind of sexual excess and license and cruelty, masculine cruelty, rich guy masculine cruelty.
And there it is.
That's
rich
it.
guy masculine cruelty.
Which was celebrated.
Yeah, and that's like that's the 80s. It's always existed.
Yeah.
But it's like it was celebrated in the 80s and it just seems like it's like they peaked in the 80s.
Yeah,
and they never wanted to grow after that, and so that's why he still has this rich guy masculine cruelty, and you see it every day when he talks about women who don't agree with him.
Yeah,
and it doesn't even have to be a woman who's stood up to him. She just has to disagree with him. And he brands every woman who disagrees with him as nasty.
Yeah.
Every woman who doesn't cozy up to him as nasty.
Yeah, agreed. And
he doesn't respect anyone. He doesn't respect women as a whole, but he only tolerates the ones who cozy up to him, and he only likes the ones that he wants to shag.
Which is really horrible when you think about his daughter.
Yeah.
And that whole thing where he said,
you remind me of my daughter.
It's nasty.
Yeah, yeah. He keeps using that word to describe women, but I don't really think he knows what that word actually means.
I don't think he knows what a lot of words mean.
Yeah, I mean, but like it's just
but I know what you mean.
He is a nasty person, and but he often, anytime a woman reminds him of that, he will brand them as nasty,
and then play out like an entitled piece of shit.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but that's all he does. He only ever plays out. He doesn't look within himself, and he still carries this mentality of the 80s that because of his status, he's entitled to everything.
Now, one of the big complaints you and I had when we first came across this story is, why did he wait until 2 days before the election to say all this?
Yeah.
And if you remember, I went on this big rant about, I'm so sick of these journalists sitting on these big stories until after or near election, when it's too late to do anything about it because they just want to, because it's all about their book sales.
Yeah.
But we learned through this that he's been trying to raise the alarm on this for quite some time.
And what's incredible from what he said is that at the beginning, the news broadcasters are completely interested, and then they kind of pull back on him.
Yeah, he's been approached by Netflix. He's been approached by Sky.
Yeah.
He's been approached by a lot of leading
Yeah,
production
even
companies
UK.
that have docudramas, or even like the serial killer shows.
Yeah. On crime.
The biopic, the true crime biopic type stuff.
Yeah.
He's and he's been. And they go through the negotiation process, but when it gets to a certain point in the executive chain, it suddenly gets shut down.
Well, there were two reasons for that. I mean, I'm going to give you
You're
one
gonna extrapolate,
reason.
or
I'm going to extrapolate here for the two reasons I believe. Number one is that there was it's hearsay, and there's no probable or exacting kind of.
It's anecdotal.
Yeah, it's all anecdotal. I can't remember the word I was looking for, but hey ho. But yeah, it's all anecdotal, and there's no actual evidence. There it is.
Yeah, but the reason there's no actual evidence is the safe.
Yes.
So Jeffrey Epstein used to keep a stash of photos in his safe in his Manhattan apartment, and Michael Wolff was shown on more than one occasion.
He said there was about half a dozen.
Yeah, photos of Donald Trump with young topless girls around a pool. He pointed out a particular photo where Trump had a telltale stain on the front of his trousers, and three girls were all pointing and laughing.
Yeah, which I...
But this is it. He said the FBI, obviously when they raided Epstein's apartment, they took the contents of that safe, and now he doesn't know what happened to those photos.
No.
And it just seems like the FBI, it's just been one, I don't know, I don't want to say...
Cover-up?
Yeah, I didn't want to say cover-up, because that's too...
I mean, this
it's
is
too
just
inflammatory.
but it's a theory. We're not saying...
It's too conspiratorial.
Yeah, but we're extrapolating from what we've got in front of us. That's all we can do.
It just feels like someone... It just feels like... Yeah, okay. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Yes,
okay?
please.
It's a cover-up. Someone didn't want those... That didn't want that to get out into the open.
No.
They didn't want it on the public record.
No.
And I mean, we've got the flight logs, we've got the photos of them partying together, we've got the quotes from each other about each other.
We've also got the quotes from the women that they abused.
Absolutely.
And the evidence that they've produced.
The thing is, there's anecdotal statements and there's eyewitness statements.
Yeah.
And there is, I guess at this point it could be branded as circumstantial evidence. Like, they were seen at a party together, but who else was at that party?
But I mean, there's a higher burden of proof here.
Yeah. There's a burden of proof here.
But in that Fox interview when he talks about the Epstein files,
would you declassify the JFK files?
Yes.
The 9/11 files?
Yes.
The Epstein files?
Yes. Come on, you can't say that's not suspicious.
I'm telling you now, if he didn't wear so much makeup, his face would have gone red. But
he actually needs a new makeup artist.
I don't think he has a makeup artist.
Because
having a makeup artist would mean that there would be someone like on the payroll that they can look at and go, he wears makeup. I reckon he just slaps that shit on in front of the mirror on his own, because I thought no makeup artist would be so bad at blending the edges.
I know, it is so bad. Like it's like when you're a teenager. Well, yeah, when you're a teenager, or you're just figuring out how to use makeup and how it looks.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like. But it's constantly like that.
Yeah,
like there is no tone there. There's no.
Does he do his makeup in the dark?
Do you think he's scared of his own face?
He's scared of He's scared of his own face until he's just in the dark, and then turns on the light and is like,
beautiful.
Yeah.
My hair, my scalp is all
Melania, what do you think?
Together.
What do you think? Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, fine, Donald.
when you're talking, okay, so you said you went off on this FBI thing, right? And how we believe that it's been covered up. So Memphis Congressman Steve Cohn, and now this is from the press releases.
Any relation to Roy?
No, it's Cohen, not Cohen.
I thought you said Cohen.
No, Cohen. So he's a senior member of the Judiciary Committee, and back in June, July this year, expressed concern that the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein reportedly had compromising photographs of Donald Trump with topless young women and showed them to the book author Michael Wolff.
Stephen Chung.
Our favourite Trump spokesman? Speaksman.
Our favourite Trump speaksman. Has fired off a response saying, Michael Wolff is a disgraced writer who routinely fabricates lies in order to sell fiction books. Because he clearly has no morals or ethics, he waited until days before the election to make outlandish, false smears, all in an effort to engage in blatant election interference on behalf of Kamala Harris. He's a failed journalist that is resorting to lying for attention. So far, in the last few weeks, the things that Donald Trump has branded as election interference. This, SNL.
Yep.
Later voting times.
Yep. Early voting times.
60 Minutes.
Yep.
The 60-minute interview.
Yep.
Anything. This year alone.
Yeah.
The E. Jean Carroll thing.
Yep.
The 34 felony convictions.
Yep.
Basically, anytime someone goes, hey, he's not a good person, and I can prove it, that's election interference.
Yeah.
But the whole point of an election is not just about campaign. It's about character too.
Yeah, and
if you've got someone who routinely violates other people, not just their rights, but their personage as well.
Yeah.
That's something that that's something that the election needs to know.
Yeah. But the problem the US have in that respect is that people that were closest to him, who basically saw his bullshit, and they've all come out and said, said that he's a nasty person, said what he had said in I was at Parliament then, in Washington, in Congress, or wherever. They've all come out. And on Twitter, wherever. They've all come out.
That's not just an America thing.
No, I know, I get that.
Think about Boris Johnson.
Oh, God, no, I don't really want to.
Think about everything we knew about Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
And then he was Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And then during that time, think about everything we learned about how he conducted himself as Prime Minister.
Yeah. But it's really odd because at that time it was both of them. It was Trump and Boris Johnson. And it was just like, what the hell is...
Tweedledee and
Tweedledum. And what the hell is going on with the world?
And Tweedledee and Tweedle Trump.
Right. I'm just going to carry on with what Steve Cohen said. So basically, he's asking in Congress, the oversight hearing in Congress, he asked the following three questions. Did the FBI retrieve any evidence that promoted the agency to open a new criminal investigation with a target other than Epstein for alleged sexual abuse? Number 2, did the FBI recover any evidence that the FBI suspects Mr. Epstein held to blackmail others? And thirdly, will you open up the FBI records about your interaction with and the investigations of Jeffrey Epstein? The FBI, since July, have still not responded to those questions.
This is insane.
I know.
And this is what... Okay, so they're obviously slowing everything down to protect certain people.
Yeah.
And the fact that Trump's people will say that the DOJ and the FBI are corrupt because they go after him and they've been weaponized against him. Yet, they do all of this stuff to protect him.
I know.
And let's not forget that there has never, ever been a FBI direct... they've never, ever appointed a Democrat as a director of the FBI.
Is that true?
In fact, the FBI is majority a Republican organization.
Oh, wow.
Most FBI agents are registered Republicans.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So
I've got the knowledge.
Definitely. But but the FBI are supposed to protect the people. The police are supposed to protect the people.
No,
and I know that's such a naive way of thinking.
Look, that's what it says on paper, but
Yeah.
really they're just
They're the elite stooges.
no, look, in most I'm gonna go a bit comrade here, but let's face it, the police are there to protect the capitalist class. They're there to they're a government of the arm. They're an arm of the government.
Government of the arm.
Yes. They're an arm of the government, and they are there to protect the government's interests. Police branches, they are run by people, and people have agendas and biases and things like that. So they are supposed to protect the people, but really they're just protecting the interests of the government.
All right, let me ask you a question then. If on the most hopeful chance of all, Trump does not get elected, do you think the FBI would then release that information if they still hold it?
I can believe that this conspiracy is sloppy enough that the evidence still exists. But I don't... Unfortunately, the good guys very, very rarely prevail.
Yeah.
The world isn't made that way.
No.
And even, we can have a situation where everything comes out into the light, but he'll
deny it.
No, he still somehow avoids repercussions.
Yeah.
Because that's just the world we live in.
Yeah. I mean...
Rich people get away with shit.
It.
Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and convicted of of sex trafficking and pedophilia. But look what happened. He managed to just walk away from any kind of punishment.
Yeah.
So I want to wrap things up now.
Right.
This has been not easy. The interesting thing is this conceit about saying things that would be negative to Trump before the election is election interference, when it seems to me that it is the very nature of an election campaign. I mean, what is the alternative? You know something and you don't say it because that would change people's minds. And that was the point I was trying to get at earlier.
Yeah.
Trump seems to think anything that would change voters' minds about him, no matter how true it is, no matter how much evidence he's left laying around, if you point at it and tell people that it's there, you're interfering with his election.
Yeah,
you're not interfering with the election.
Yeah.
You're interfering with his election.
Yeah. Because everything revolves around him. Everything in his mind, his world, his whatever is about
It's all about him. The world is him and everybody else.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
and what can I get from it or what can I take from it?
Yeah. So I want to kind of just wrap things up about the end of the second podcast.
Yeah.
Kind of left a bad taste in my mouth.
Okay.
Michael Wolff, he seems to empathize with the monster a little bit too much for my liking. He said, the idea that Epstein was speaking to me so that I would be the channel from which he could speak from beyond the grave. I don't know if he wanted redemption. I mean, I actually said on many occasions, you just have to tell this story publicly, and your contribution to humanity will redeem you. Hard disagree.
No way. Nothing can redeem him at all. What he did was heinous.
And not just what he did, but how long he did it
for.
And how brazenly he did it. And how unapologetically he did it.
But
he wasn't trying to redeem himself because he realized he was scum.
Yeah.
He was trying to redeem himself because he knew time was running out.
Yeah.
It's almost like he wanted to take Trump down with him.
Yeah, because everything they both did, and Trump still does to this day, is in view of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't he talk about someone not knowing how old they were? Like they could, they
Well,
really
he
said-
talked, the writer himself, Michael
Yeah.
Wolff, he talked about like frequent, because obviously he was following Epstein around.
Yeah.
And he just talked about how these girls were just like, they were just the sort of, they were set dressing in Epstein's fantasy,
Yeah.
right? And he kind of, I don't want to say they were underage. It's more like you didn't want to know.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
I mean,
it's more like, it's the worst. It's the pedophiles don't ask, don't tell.
yeah, I mean, talking from my own experience, my first boyfriend was 28 and he asked me out when I was 15.
Yeah.
So
Did he care about the age difference?
No, not really,
But
because
then
on my
that was-
16th
That
birthday,
happened a lot in our generation.
I
as well.
know.
And everyone was okay with it. Now
Yeah.
we know it's, young girls know it's not okay.
Okay, yeah.
Well, hopefully most of them.
well, if they're taught well, then they will know it's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was, the 90s were a completely different scene than it is now.
Yeah. I don't think, I don't really want to talk about this anymore.
Me neither. It's
It's icky.
It's icky.
It's
I think
disturbing.
it's disturbing, and to be honest, I really don't want any nightmares today.
Yeah. So, I think let's call it a day.
All right.
So,
Well, we hope you like this podcast today.
yeah, I hope you. I don't know how you could like this one, but we will be back tomorrow. We don't know what tomorrow's story is going to be, but as you know, this is a new channel, so help us grow. Subscribe, like, comment. You can find us on the socials under two filthy casuals on Instagram.
Casuals, liberals.
Sorry, I was thinking filthy casual as in I'm a console gamer. I'm a filthy casual. The two filthy liberals. You find us on TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.
Bye.